I'm Chance Dorland, and this is the Spurs Insider, our weekly NBA podcast from ExpressNews.com. And we send it now to Jabari Young, who is joined by a special guest.
All right, thanks, Chance. Here at the WOAI Studios, Jabari Young here with you for the Spurs Insider podcast. And you know, if I'm in WOAI Studios, I'm only joined by one person. No, it ain't David Chancellor, okay?
Hey, man.
It's not Chuck Minitetic. It's Don Harris, okay? Don Harris here, back on the Spurs Nation, Spurs Insider podcast right here on ExpressNews.com. Don, first of all, man, in full disclosure, we taped the podcast before, and I never hit the record button. So we had this great conversation. So we're going to try to get into it again, talk some DeMar, DeRozan, Kawhi.
Where's your engineer?
I don't know. Thank you for doing it again. But talk Kawhi Leonard. He's happy in Toronto, according to the coach Nick Nurse, and how he lit up in the room. Manu Ginóbili could be coming close to making a decision on his future and whether or not he'll return, if he hasn't already done it by now, by the time you listen to this podcast. But first, we get right into it. Don, DeMar DeRozan, Greg Popovich, obviously meeting in Las Vegas. We talked about it on the Sports Nation Overtime on Sunday evening. And it appears as though that, you know, obviously it's a new chapter in the Spurs history. It's done. But DeMar DeRozan is finally, buying into the fact that, hey, he's a Spur. And
that's the biggest trade in Spurs history.
I was going to get into that. You know, he's a Spur now. Yeah. Kawhi Leonard is supposedly happy in Toronto. We get to that in a couple minutes, but I'm going to ask you, revisiting that trade.
Yeah.
You've been around a long time. Is this the biggest trade in the Spurs history? And if not, what is?
Okay. So it could be. I'm not going to say definitively.
Right.
Because he's an NBA Finals MVP. A two-time Defensive Player of the Year, but so was Andre Iguodala, but he was no Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or even Klay Thompson. So, you know, the resume that he has makes it feel like it's the biggest Spurs trade ever. But again, I'm old and I grew up here.
You're not old, man. You just have a lot of wisdom.
And I remember how big the George Gervin to Chicago trade hit San Antonio. And you got to remember, George Gervin, in the history of the Spurs, there's, you know, the Mount Rushmore in order, you know, pops on there. But as far as the greatest players ever, Tim Duncan, number 1, David Robinson, number 2, George Gervin, number 3, Tony Parker, Manu Ginóbili, 4, 5. And you can flip those guys either way. But it's definitely the top 3, and it's George Gervin's number 3. So he was a 4-time scoring champ. He was an all-star game MVP, and he was the guy that led the Spurs to the Western Conference Finals against Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and those early 80s Lakers that were playing the Celtics and Bird and Dr. J and Sixers in the NBA Finals. And we'd lose to them in 6 games in San Antonio as a kid growing up, you know, 6 or 7 games, and the Iceman was our guy.
Yeah. The
Iceman was nobody knew where San Antonio was, what San Antonio was. The Spurs were never on the radar of anything. I mean, I can't even think of a team in any pro sport. They were like the Nashville Predators or something in hockey. They were not in America's consciousness. And so even if they wrote George Gervin's name and had a little picture of him in Sports Illustrated, we went nuts. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, they recognized George Gervin. So the Iceman was the Spurs. And so when they traded him away, and it was a little late in his career, to Chicago, that just felt bigger than this one. But, you know, Kawhi is not that old. Kawhi is still in the prime of his career. The Iceman maybe been a little bit past his prime. He went to Chicago and started in front of Michael Jordan, by the way, in that first 84 season. So it was, it felt bigger with the Iceman, but this might be.
And listen, it's over now. So now we can look at this thing objectively. I ask you, when he comes back here, Kawhi Leonard, should the fans boo? And I'm only asking this. I've been driving around town, and everybody who, you know, has seen me and they know or recognize me, they're always asking, they have asked, you know, what do you think about the Kawhi Leonard deal? You know, that traitor, they'll say he's a traitor. They'll say he'll never win anything else again. But the fact remains that he did help them win that title in 2014. The fact remains that he did help the Spurs be up by 25 against Golden State. Despite we know they weren't probably going to win a series, but the fact remains that when he put on the Spurs uniform, that he was a damn good player. Now, everything that happens, I don't think that he did it from a perspective of, hey, I'm disrespecting the fans. He just didn't want to be in San Antonio anymore because he just didn't want to play for the Spurs anymore.
Right.
With that said,
no, it's not against the fans, I don't think.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't the fans. And listen, I've talked to people close to him over the last few years, and they said, listen, we had no problem living in San Antonio. We just didn't want to play for the team anymore.
Yeah.
So with that said, should he be booed when he comes back here? Because you know that, first of all, that game's probably going to be a national televised game.
I put a poll out on Twitter saying, will you boo? I didn't say whether you should or you should. I said, will you? And it was 65-35 yes. And I think that, and I don't think it's all his fault, but I think the way in which he handled it, I know the Spurs made mistakes as well, but I think the way in which he handled it with his communication or lack thereof with the team has alienated him with the fans in a way that they do fault him for the communication. And I'm not saying the Spurs are always right, but the Spurs have had a pretty clean track record with great players wanting to be here. You know, David Robinson could have left after he was drafted. I mean, any player could have gone to the Lakers because he had to serve 2 years in the Naval Academy. And he said, no, I like this little town and I'm going to start here. And he waited 2 years after he was drafted to come play his rookie year. Tim Duncan flirted with Orlando in 2000. His first, and a lot of people thought he and Grant Hill were going together to Orlando. And Tim said, you know what? No, I'm going to stay with Pop, da-da-da-da-da. Manu had other opportunities.
Tony had his opportunity. He left.
They locked Tony up for most of it, but I think Tony leaving makes sense for both at this. But it wasn't. There was no acrimony there. Tony and Pop talked it through, and it was all good. I think the lack of communication is alienating him. Look, I don't like to see anybody get booed. I think there will be some Spurs fans that stand and clap because of how good he was as a player here. Kept his nose clean here, never got in trouble, was, by all accounts, a good citizen. Even in the end, I think you could make the case that he was a bad teammate for one season. But, I don't like to see people boo, but I think they will. And it's just because, they've been jilted. Their feelings are hurt.
Yeah, and listen, we both know that he's probably going to get booed. I don't necessarily – I'm 50-50 on it. In a way, I think yes, because the fans cheer for the team, okay? And for all that nonsense about the fans cheer for the player, they don't cheer for the player, they cheer for the team.
Yeah.
They may support the player while he's with the team, but they cheer for the team. But you know what, though? It brings me up to
They cheered for Dennis Rodman.
But you know what? I was going to ask you something. Because remember a guy who went through a similar situation as Kawhi Leonard, right? And, he had contract problems, though. And that guy was Derek Anderson.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I don't know. I wasn't around. Did they boo him when he came back here?
I don't remember. But Derek, man, those were some weird times.
That's what I'm saying. For people thinking that this is the first time the Spurs were in this type of light, it just wasn't national.
Derek wasn't the player Kawhi was.
But he wasn't. But he was a damn good player. Yeah, Derek Anderson was a very good player.
It was, he wasn't an all-star, but he was good. He was a good player. But he got sideways with the owner, and he was immature a little bit and not understanding how the business works. A little bit like DeMar DeRozan acted with Toronto. Look, guys got to understand we're old timers. We're a little callous. There's no loyalty on either sides in this thing. It's all about business.
No, and that's why I said.
So DeMar felt like he was betrayed by Masai's loyalty, and you just. There's no such thing. And Derek Anderson was even way younger and way less mature than DeMar. And so he really took it personally when they, Tony Parker, for crying out loud, if anybody deserves a certain contract, it's Tony Parker. And they said, look, man, we might give you 1 year and you ain't going to play. And we can't guarantee. I mean, they did that to Tony Parker. So if they can do that to Tony Parker, then surely they can do it to Derek Anderson or DeMar.
Well, Derek Anderson will be the first to tell you that he handled that wrong and he let his personal feelings get involved and you have to keep business aside from personal feelings.
Sure he did.
But you mentioned something about loyalty and how there is none. And this is why I tell people that Spurs.
And I broke that story, and Derek Anderson had loyalty on his chandelier over his pool table, and he had loyalty tattooed on him. He had loyalty on his gold neck chain, and we sent a truck over there to his house and broke the news on a 6 o'clock show And he told us right there he was going to Portland and nobody had it at the time. And he talked bad about Peter Holt, and it was all about loyalty. He felt he was disloyal.
So I thought he had a problem with the owner, and I thought he had a problem with R.C. Buford.
Maybe, but he mentioned
Peter Holt.
Yeah.
And well, he'll be the first to tell you how he kind of, like I said before, that he let that, he probably should have handled that differently. But this is why I tell people the Spurs have a 2-year window, because you're getting a better DeMar DeRozan because he has a chip on his shoulder. I'm sure he wants to prove a lot of people wrong. But I'm sure you're also getting probably a different type of business DeMar DeRozan, where there's no longer loyalty in his vocabulary.
Sure.
He's going to do what he wants to do when his contract's up. So that's why if you're the Spurs, you have 2 years, okay? Remain on, because he's probably not going to opt into that last year. You have 2 years to convince him to stay, because I think, me personally, I don't know this for sure, I think he's already saying, you know what? I didn't do this before, but if I get the chance this time, I might go home this time. Sure. I might go back to LA, because if you're not going to be loyal to me, I'm going to be loyal to myself. I want to be with my family. I want to be with my friends. I want to be with my kids. Okay.
Sure.
And that's why you have a 2-year window. But
the number will be a big part of it.
Yeah, contract. But remember something, market size, he'll probably get more money from Nike out there. And 2 years. But
where will he be? He'll be in his 11th or 12th year.
He will be, but if he's still making All-Star team, well, see, that's the other thing.
He's not going to make All-Star team.
He might not make an All-Star team.
No.
He might not make an All-Star team. And that's sad. That's almost like now, if you're a player, you're thinking to yourself, okay, do we have to get East and West? Why can't we just get the best 24 players, whoever we want in the league? You know what I mean? Like, why can't we do that? Because if you're saying East, West, that's not fair, because you know that the West have way more talent than the East, and there's going to be guys that miss out. LaMarcus Aldridge, damn, he could have missed out.
I mean, just think of the guards in the West.
I know. I see it, man.
I mean, there's 10 before you get to DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, I know. Loyalty aside, though, switching to Kawhi now, we've been hearing all these rumors out there that when Nick Nurse, the new head coach up there, when he met Kawhi, that Kawhi was like a kid, on Christmas, and how he was happy, he was engaged, and they were going to
I'd like to see the video.
I would too. I mean, I don't know if Nick Nurse is spinning this or what, but
Look.
I hear this and I say to myself, why couldn't that be the thing here? Why wasn't he as engaged here? And I'm thinking maybe this situation maybe have, it will change him a little bit. They've already been told that they're going to keep an open mind about Toronto. They're not just going to go in there saying, look, this is a 1-year thing. They're already talking, hey, we're going to keep an open mind about it. And, we'll give this thing a real legit shot. But if he's more engaged, if he's talking to the coach, if he's going over plays and asking, how are you going to use me here? Why the hell couldn't that happen here?
Well, first of all, he's saying all that about staying in Toronto maybe long term and giving it a chance because it's July.
Well, he hasn't said anything.
Once he walks out the door and that wind and that snow hit him.
Yeah.
And look, he went to the All-Star game there. And the rumor is he didn't come out of his room the entire weekend because he hates the cold.
But nobody did, though, Don. Like, I've heard stories about that weekend, too. Like, if you were at a party, you stayed at that party. I don't give a damn if it was 5 people there. I'm staying because to get outside and minus 10, I ain't going. I'm staying right here.
Well, hey, the reason it didn't happen here is I think you got to look at the league when he came in. Came in 2012. There was a lockout. There was no training camp. He didn't really get to know anybody in the summer, the off season. He's going with all these alphas, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginóbili, Tony Parker, these Hall of Famers. He's immediately tempted to defer. He's not, who is he? The 15th pick in the draft out of San Diego State? He's a nobody. They had no idea he was going to turn into this player. They had hopes for him, but they had no idea how good he was going to be. So he immediately is put into a position of rook. He's already quiet. He's may or may not even start. We got to figure out how good this kid's going to be, right? So he takes a subservient role. And maybe he just stays in that way. I remember Pop shoving him in the chest in the middle of a game in the NBA Finals. Remember that?
Yeah.
During a timeout?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're the man. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, 2 fists.
I told you, you're the guy. So it was almost like they had to convince him to have the confidence to be the guy. I think it's a maturity thing. I think he's showing that there, it's maybe he just never felt comfortable because it's like your puppy, man. If you have a Rottweiler that could kill somebody, but you're the owner when he's a puppy and you pop him on the head when he goes to the bathroom or whatever, he's always going to be a little scared of you, no matter how big he gets. And maybe Pop had that influence on him. Maybe no matter how great Kawhi became, he was always going to be that fourth or fifth guy, quiet, subservient, taking a backseat to Manu and Tony and Tim. And now he feels, well, I'm an all-star. I'm a finals MVP. I've got a new place, got a brand new coach who's never done it before. I played for Greg Popovich. Man, I can tell this guy how I want my stuff run.
You think he's more confident now that he's up there?
I think maybe he has the opportunity to flex his power a little bit that he was never going to be able to flex here, no matter how good he became, because he's always going to be under Pop, Tony, and Manu and those guys. So maybe now he goes, look, I'm the one who's won the championship.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's won the finals MVP. Who is Nick Nurse?
And they got to keep him happy because they're trying to re-sign him for a long time. It makes
sense.
Who
is Nick Nurse?
That's a good point.
So I'm going here. I'm going to tell you what plays you're going to draw for me. Now, I have a hard time believing that he was engaging, not only because he was quiet here to the media, but that he was quiet to everyone. Right? He was quiet to teammates. They couldn't get word. David Robinson tried to call him. He wouldn't say 5 words to the admiral whenever he talked to him. I mean, I don't know anybody who said, yeah, really. We knew that with Tim Duncan. And if you listeners may not realize this, Tim Duncan, I always hated this comparison. Everybody said, oh, we love Kawhi because he's just like Tim Duncan. He doesn't talk to the media. He's quiet. And all he does is get his work done. Right? Totally different guys. Tim Duncan would walk over to the cameraman and say, what's up, Goose? To my photographer. What's up, Don? How you doing? He'd slap you. What's up, fellas? Turn the camera off. All right, guys. I did a bit with him called Tim's Mailbag. He would laugh and open up and talk about all kinds of stuff. Tim Duncan was honestly a witty, engaging, funny, smart, intelligent comedian at times. Kawhi Leonard was a box of rocks. I could never get anything from that guy.
You didn't, but with the way you said how Tim interacted with you like that, there's been plenty of times when I saw Kawhi in the hallway, he's done that to me. Like when I was, I didn't even
human. He acted human.
I didn't see him one day, and I turned around and he looked at me like, "Yo, what's up, son?" Like that's what he would do.
I've never seen him act human.
And that's why I keep telling people, y'all don't when he had some cameras in his face, but it's almost like the Greg Popovich effect with Kawhi Leonard, because you know as well as I do, Don, when those cameras are rolling, Pop can be funny sometimes, he can be engaged sometimes, but you also know that he can appear to be so difficult because, but then when you turn the cameras off, he's laughing, he's joking. It was almost like that's the same thing with Kawhi Leonard, because I saw a different Kawhi Leonard. I saw a different Kawhi Leonard when I was with him in 2014 after the NBA Finals when we were both up in San Diego and I was with his family and I was at his events. Okay, I saw a different Kawhi Leonard then. I saw a different Kawhi Leonard when I was walking through the halls when he was on the bench during the season when he would come up and say something to me. I saw a different Kawhi Leonard behind the scenes. I saw a different Kawhi Leonard when he was in the locker room in New York talking about how the team, what they did for New Year's Eve. I see a different Kawhi Leonard when the cameras aren't on.
Well, then you can actually vision it when he talked to Nick. I can't. I've never seen him act anywhere close to being a human being. I've only seen him in the robot.
Right. But that brings me to this, right? Before we get up to Manu Ginóbili, it's as much as, and like I said, Kawhi is gone. It's over. And if he's up there and he's engaging, fine, cool. Let him do his thing. Don't the Spurs have some pressure too? Because they have to make sure that DeMar DeRozan's coming here and they have to make sure that things are comfortable for him, that he is good, because you can't go into next summer and something gets out that DeMar DeRozan didn't like it, he wants to be traded. Yeah. Because that would be 3 straight summers that star players in your system wanted out of San Antonio. That would not reflect very good on them. That would be horrible for them. What are you looking for within this team?
See, you and I disagree on this just a little bit, and I did a commentary on it last week. I see your point, and I agree with it in the sense that the world is changing, the league is changing, and you have to be able to, you don't want that look like, hey, we don't want to go to San Antonio. Look what happened with LaMarcus. Look what happened with Kawhi. Look what happened to DeMar. At the same time, the Spurs, in a way, are Duke, right? A program that is singular in his existence. So Coach K don't have to do the things that other people have to do to get players because he's Coach K. He's Duke. I ain't going to recruit you. I ain't going to go out there, Marvin Bagley, whoever. You want to come to Duke? Well, let's see. We'll see. But if and I'm sure there are people, Wendell Carter's mom was one of them who spoke out against it, that won't be a good fit at Duke. But they're still Duke. And I think the Spurs in a regard are program first. We'll find enough guys that want to be in this program. And if there's a few that the way we do it doesn't work for them, fine. We'll get other really good players who will do it this way. It's like going to a military academy. You and I couldn't have done it. I can't get up at 5:30 in the morning, shine my shoes, and eat in 5 minutes and shower in 2, be at the mess hall. Yes, sir. You know, it takes a special kid. I was slept in and missed class, and I, went to college like most normal kids. The kids that go to military academies, they're different. They're different breeds. I got a lot of respect for them. They do all this stuff. So it takes a special breed, I think, to play for the Spurs. And I like the fact that they're not going to sacrifice what they think and what they know that built this program because we do it this way, even if it's a little controlling, even if they limit endorsement opportunities or podcasts or whatever. This is the way we're going to do it. If you don't fit in here, you don't fit in here. Danny Green, for one, got traded. Now he's got a podcast. They would never allow that kind of stuff here. You never see the flyers with guys having a party at a nightclub. You never saw it. They didn't allow it here. So they're going to do it their way. And will it hurt them? Maybe. Will it hurt with certain guys? Definitely. But I think they're like Duke. Okay, you don't want to come here. We do it weird. They're like a military academy. We make you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and shine your shoes. That's the Spurs way. We'll find enough guys. It's like playing football at Stanford. Stanford, a lot of guys can't play football at Stanford because they can't do the grades. Stanford's a great team. They're limited in who they can recruit. They miss out on a lot of really good recruits who don't have the grades to go to Stanford. But at the end of the day, they're always in the top 10.
Yeah, but see, and that's a very interesting point about the whole Duke thing. Okay, cool. But there are people around the league and people who I've talked to that will glorify and listen, Greg Popovich deserves all the credit in the world. But they will say the reason why the Spurs, as you say, if they're the equivalent of Duke, the reason why they were Duke is because they had a guy who was Duke. He was Tim Duncan. And that is the guy that set and that helped the program get to the way it is. He's no longer here. So you have to redefine your program. Coach K, as good as a coach he is, he has to also go and recruit those kids that he knows are going to be one and done. Now, he doesn't want, no coach wants a one and done player. They want a chance to build the program. But that does not mean that Coach K, he knows he has to recruit those players that they're going to be one and done too. Because if he doesn't.
But he's not going to recruit a Boogie Cousins.
No, he might not recruit a
Right. And Calipari would. And so he's got to find the guys that may not be as good as Boogie Cousins, that may not be as good as John Wall. John Wall is going to go to Kentucky. John Wall is not going to go to Duke. Carolina's had a lot of guys that can't go to Duke because of A, academics, and B, the rigidness of Coach K. Not who they are. They can't fit in that way. Man, screw this. I'm not going to do that. Coach K makes us do this. And I think to a certain extent, yes, it was Tim Duncan, but, I think, and there's no question, Pop will be the first one to tell you, you have to have that guy. You have to have the talent. But it's also the program. In other words, I think if Coach Pop coached the Phoenix Suns or the Orlando Magic, that within a few years they would be an elite team. And they may or may not have a Tim Duncan. I mean, they were third last year with what? Not Kawhi Leonard. For most of the season, they were the third best team in the West with what? Because how many nights do you come into games where they won with a bunch of scrubs just because the way they execute?
Well, the system is good. I'm not saying the system is not good and they can't win that way, but
it's just they execute, man.
Yeah, but nobody's saying the system. I'm saying you have to. If you get certain guys in here and they're within that system, then that's gold. But you still need the talent, Don. You can't go out
you can't win championships.
Yeah, you need the talent, and in order to get the talent, you might have to ease up on some things. Now, with that said, do you expect them at all? Are you going to be looking for anything at all to change? Is there something that you're going to be looking to say, okay, I want to see if this changes next offseason or this coming season to see if they've learned from this Kawhi Leonard experience?
See, I've known Pop long enough to know that he's always had the respect of the players, but not all of them want to play for him. Team USA is a great example.
Right.
He's going to go out there and he's going to laugh. He's going to have fun. He's going to slap KD and Anthony Davis and all them guys on the rear end, and they're going to love him. I love Pop. But they may not want to be a Spur because loving Pop at Team USA practice is a lot different when he stops practicing and chews you up and down no matter who you are.
So you don't expect Pop to chew somebody out in Team USA? Like, no. And when the Olympics happen, like, you don't expect him.
I expect him to get on to guys and coach them hard, but not hard like he coached Tony or Manu.
There's no yelling. There's no, if a guy misses up or doesn't execute a play right, you can't foresee him going over and screaming till he's red in the face and to about.
Yeah. I think I can see that.
In the Olympics, you see that happening?
Yeah. In the heat of the moment, I could see him getting onto somebody. He may not, he's mellowed some. He may just pull him out of the game and not say anything to him.
I can see that too. I can't see him doing that.
He's not going to light somebody up like
because he's dealing with superstar players at that point. Okay,
but Steve's done a pretty good job of doing that in Golden State. Steve will get on KD or Steph the way Pop got on Tony or Tim. Steve learned it here,
but not as hard though. Not as hard.
Pop's got his own language.
Yes, exactly. Not as hard though. But we can go on and on. Yeah. I'm curious to see if anything changes within the team. We may not see it media wise, but I'm curious to see.
Hey, look, RC and Pop are the two smartest guys I think in the league. Sam Presti's another one. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're so methodical in everything that they do. Is if they sit down and have their meeting and say, what went wrong with Kawhi? Do we need to implement X, Y, Z? Do we need to change? Do we need to look internally? Pop did that with LaMarcus. He looked internally and admitted, hey, I made a mistake with you, and let's do something different. They're blowing up the silver dancers and they're doing all this kind of stuff because the world is changing. They've got a female going to the front of the bench. They're smart. They're methodical. I wouldn't see them sacrifice their core values, but I wouldn't be surprised if they held an organizational meeting to address maybe some things that they need to change, not to have something with Kawhi happen again.
Yeah.
I can see him doing that.
Right. And I think that's important. And the media needs to see it too. They got to ease up. They got to start giving us more interviews and more. Right, fast before we go, Manu Ginóbili coming to a decision soon.
He's coming back.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, I think the reason he's quiet is he's got a contract. There's no reason to make an announcement.
No, there's not. But I mean, I think people would rather listen. We're like a couple of days away from August. Like somebody, he needs to make a decision. Matter of fact, he made a decision way earlier than this last year.
He's coming back. Last year he went on a contract. He was a free agent. They offered him a contract.
Yeah, but he wasn't going anywhere.
Right. I expected him to come back last year. It was 2 years ago where I thought it was in danger with the whole Philadelphia thing. But he's got a contract, so why does he need to say anything? He's just going to show up at training camp.
You know what? Here's the thing about that, and I'm looking at this from a human element, from a man and from a father's point of view. There's a part of me that don't want to see him come back, and
I thought he was gone. You know why? I'd never seen his kids at that many games.
Right.
And they were always there pre-warm-up, sitting on the first row watching Daddy.
Almost like you're enjoying the last moment.
And I got that feeling from him more than a few times standing down there before the game starts. Like this, and he said something to me. All those Argentinians
being there.
They came on tours and they were screaming, hey, ole, ole. And I go, man, you're big time. They love you. And he looked at me and he goes, farewell tour. And then he stopped. He caught himself because he realized he had a slip there. And he goes, but I've been on that for the last 3 or 4 years. So I thought when he said that, like he was like, oh yeah, he was acknowledging the fact that he's done. But if you're a dad, I've seen all the pictures with his kids. He's really enjoying the off season.
Yes.
Almost like I'm going to maximize the off season because I'm going to go ahead and do it again.
Or that has a reverse effect.
Because I think they're going to keep coming to the games.
Yeah, but that has a reverse effect though, not because you can maximize the off season and then you can also look up and say, damn, you know what? I want more of this. And I don't feel like going through the grind and being away and doing all of that. Here's
what he's always said. He's always said, I'm going to go away for 2 months And then late July, whenever, mid or late July, I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to say, do I feel like a basketball player or do I feel like a former basketball player? And if I feel like a basketball player, I'm going to come back. 2 years ago, he was beat up. He was out of shape. He was injured. And he came back because the money was good because Philly offered him 33 for 2 and the Spurs had to match and give him 14 a year. And he got that money. And now he's playing for 2.5. But last year he played for 2.5 because he felt great. This year, he's even better shape. He's leaner than I've ever seen him. He played better this year than he has in the last 2 or 3 years. He was contributing. There's no reason to stop based on health. I think when he looks in the mirror, he's going to say, I still feel like a basketball player.
Yeah.
So that's why I think he's coming back.
And I also think that a part of that too, Marco Bellinelli had to make that call, right? Like, dude, are you going to come back? Like, if you're not going to be here, I'm not going. Maybe. And I think, now listen, Marco is very close with Patty Mills as well. You know what I mean? Him, Patty Mills, Marco.
Patty's on the phone with him every day.
Yeah, Patty, Marco, Manu Ginóbili, Boris Diaw. Remember, that was like, and Thiago Splendor. That was like the connection right there. Yeah. And, Marco, I'm sure probably, called Patty up. Patty's here. And, and Manu too. I'm sure he made that phone call. But I don't want to see him. I'd love to see, I want to see him come back as a journalist because I love covering the guy. I love seeing what he does on the court. But I also understand that time away from your kids, my daughter lives in Philadelphia. And today even, I had one of those moments like, God damn, I miss my kid.
You said it on the cup on your
Yeah, I mean, it's a podcast. Don didn't know that we can say damn on a podcast.
Hey, I thought Kawhi was going to drive Manu out of basketball. I think now that Kawhi's gone, I thought Manu was going to leave because he had had enough. Now I think he'll come back because he, A, feels good, wants to play, and B, he didn't want to go out on a bad note with all the drama and all the crap that they went through last year.
Yeah, and I think the trade, now see, if they would have traded Kawhi and they would have got back young pieces and assets and tried to rebuild, then I think maybe Manu says, okay, you know what?
Yeah, he thinks they might come
right now, and that's what I'm saying. Now you have DeMar DeRozan, now you have back Marco Bellinelli, Rudy Gay's coming back. I think if you're Manu, you say, okay, you know what? Now I can truly give it one more chance, one more shot, because I know we have the team now that we can go out and we can do some work. And now I'll feel good that no matter what happens after this season, I can walk away knowing that we gave it all we had and it wasn't that up and down season.
Listen, I want to make this really clear. This should never be underestimated. Whether he comes back or not, at 41, he just turned 41. I said on the air when Manu was 26 or 27 years old, there is no way that this guy will be playing basketball at the age of 30. Because Manu played so hard and played so much on the floor and broke noses and jaws and elbows and feet and toes and ankles. This man lost a testicle and got to his feet and walked off. Imagine those soccer players who flop. This man lost a testicle.
Yes.
It was kicked so hard that it was crushed. And he got to his feet and walked through the tunnel before he collapsed.
Yeah.
He's the toughest and the most and I talked to him about this.
Wait, did he collapse?
Yeah, as soon as he got into the tunnel.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he collapsed.
They carried him to the rest of the way to the locker room.
Oh, snap. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But the gruesome details that I've heard about that injury will make you tingle.
The average man would have quit after that. You would have quit playing basketball.
He was back in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But the guy is the toughest dude who's ever lived physically. And he's told me he's concerned about what his body will be like at 50, 55 orthopedically. You know, will he need new knees, hips, all the stuff that he's been through?
And it's not, he didn't even play football. He played basketball. Most guys play football.
He played football on a basketball.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what he did, man. Yeah. But listen, I want to see him come back. A part of me does want to see him come back. A part of me doesn't. But at the end of the day, he's going to make that decision. And I think whatever he chooses, as he said at the end of the 2015-16 season, whichever route he chooses, it's a win-win for him.
And you know what? Tim Duncan's the greatest Spur of all time. Iceman's can easily be the most favorite because of his engaging personality and the way he scored. But there's a good argument for Manu Ginóbili to be, quote unquote, the greatest Spur of all time. Not the greatest player. Tim's the greatest player.
Yeah.
But with the way he played and the way he engaged this community, there's a lot of people who call Manu the GOAT.
You know what? I say that Manu Ginóbili is, and I'm saying this with all due respect to Tim Duncan. I think Tim Duncan will be the greatest Spur in San Antonio, in the city. But outside of San Antonio, when you're talking about worldwide, Manu Ginóbili is the most popular. He's the most popular Spur in all of out of everybody.
Yeah, his on the court, you can't argue with Tim and his 15 All-Stars.
But it's only within San Antonio that people will give him that honor. Yeah. Even in San Antonio, you'll have Manu and Tim will go head to head. That should be your next poll. In San Antonio only, who is the greatest Spur? And I'm not, you leave statistics out of it. Just say who's the greatest
favorite.
Spur or most popular Spur.
Most popular.
Favorite. And I guarantee you that might be 50-50.
What Spur do you love the most?
I guarantee you that
that'd be
Manu would probably edge that.
That'd be Manu.
He would probably edge it. Now, again, statistics aside, Tim Duncan's the greatest power forward that ever played in the NBA game.
Tim Duncan's the greatest Spur, easy.
Right.
But Manu...
Statistically, he's the greatest Spur.
Manu is the poll. Which Spur do you love the most?
Manu is the most loved Spur. He's the most popular Spur. He is the biggest Spur worldwide.
Of course.
Out of Tim Duncan. And that's, again, leaving stats out of it. But,
These people would flock from Argentina, and they would get a chance to meet Manu. Gosh, what a great guy Manu is with all his fans.
Yeah, he is, man.
And these people were crying. And Manu knows how important he is. That's right. To Argentinian fans.
That's right.
Manu knows how important he is to Spurs fans, and he appreciates it. And he knows, he's a regular guy. And so I've seen so many families take pictures with him and get selfies with him, and he does it over and over and over again. And they're crying sometimes. I mean, Manu's Elvis of Argentina.
Yeah. I think that's an international thing too, man. I mean, here's a kid who came from nothing, and he's just happy to be where he's at. And a lot of guys that come into the league, especially in the days of AAU, they're already put on this pedestal. So when they come in, they can be some complete.
This guy's the greatest.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I love that. And plus, we still need him. I know DeMar DeRozan coming in. I think he's going to provide some great insight as far as quotes and stuff like that. But there's not going to be anybody like Manu. When you need the pulse of the team, that's the guy right there. But Spurs Insider Podcast with Don Harris at WOEI Studios. Before we go, just want to give a shout out to Jonathan Sanford, the Spurs arena announcer who is leaving to go to Houston to make sure that his wife, who is in remission from cancer, is getting the best treatment. And Jonathan made the very difficult decision to leave.
2 shots?
Man, you want to leave 2 shots? I mean, listen, the dude is he's the man. Spurs ball! Nobody's ever going to, be able to replicate that. But if you didn't see the interview that we did, expressnews.com has it. John, wishing you all the best as you move into your next chapter of your life. And maybe one day you'll come back. We'll see, man. But that's going to do it from here. WOEI Studios with Don Harris. Thank you, Don, for all those people who were hoping that me and Don was just going to argue and go back and forth about Kawhi Leonard. Sorry to disappoint you. We actually had some good dialogue this time. Spurs Insider Podcast. Catch you next time.